My wife said, "I only married him for his potential." I replied, "Thank you for your honesty." I called a divorce attorney from a lot, pulled the invoice for premium circle slot, and read the keycard report. Then a voicemail from B played in my car before the intake form came back. Have you ever been embarrassed so hard you felt your body go quiet? Like your brain pulled a blanket over itself. That happened to me at a couple's retreat in the hills outside Hermann, Missouri. And it started with a calendar entry that looked harmless until it didn't. I'm Osric Haverson, 42, and I run shift operations at a river lock and dam on the Missouri. I watch water levels, log every gate movement, and make sure boats pass through without a crash. Most days I believe steady work makes a steady life. That weekend taught me steady work can't fix a person who enjoys the drop. Our house sits on the edge of town with a gravel drive and a windbreak of bare winter trees. It always smells like coffee grounds because I dump the filter into the compost each morning. There's a stack of folded dam maps on the dining table that never fully goes away. At night, the radiator ticks like it's counting seconds. My wife, Tamsin Collett, was 41 and a licensed physical therapist at a sports clinic in Washington, Missouri. She was smart and sharp and very focused on image. She talked about growth like it was a scoreboard. And lately she talked about my potential like it was a debt. 2 weeks before the retreat, I saw the entry on our paper wall calendar while I was looking for a pen. The box for Saturday had heavy ink and a star, Honesty Circle Spotlight, Tamsin. It wasn't a normal session note. It looked planned, like a performance slot. I asked her that night why her name was starred like that. That was confrontation one. She smiled and said it was just how the retreat organized who spoke first. Then she said I always read things the wrong way and I should be grateful she was trying to help us. Her voice stayed friendly, but her eyes went flat. She said, "If you trust me, stop asking for details." I swallowed the feeling and told myself to wait. A gate cycle is not about panic, it's about timing. The retreat was at a renovated lodge near the river bluffs with cedar beams and a lobby fireplace that made everything smell like smoke and orange peel. 12 couples sat in a circle on rough wool rugs, and the therapist, Bastian Roque, spoke in a calm voice like he was steering a canoe. Tamsin looked relaxed in a way she hadn't looked in months. That should have warned me. On the second night, Bastian announced the Honesty Circle. He said the point was to speak one hard truth without attacking. My stomach tightened because I saw Tamsin's star on the schedule again in my head. Mini hook, because sometimes you feel the hit before it lands. Tamsin raised her hand first. She smiled at the room and said, loud and clear, "I only married him for his potential. He hasn't lived up to it yet." Then she laughed like it was a cute confession. 12 couples stared at me and the therapist's pen stopped moving. I stood up slowly. I heard my own chair scrape the floor and it sounded too loud. I said, "Thank you for your honesty." Then I walked out before my face could betray what I felt. I didn't run. I didn't slam a door. I just kept moving until cold air hit my lungs and the parking lot lights buzzed above my head. Mini hook, because the most dangerous moment isn't anger, it's clarity. I drove home in silence, watching the dark highway lines pass like a slow film. When I got to town, I pulled into the grocery store lot because it was bright and empty, and my hands were shaking. I called a divorce attorney from that parking lot and said, "I need help filing first." Her name was Edrin Valtieri, older, calm, and blunt in the way that feels safe. She asked one question. "Did you leave the retreat and are you safe?" I said yes. She said, "Good, don't explain anything tonight. Go home, secure your basics, and we talk in the morning." Tamsin's call came while I was still sitting in my truck with the engine ticking. She sounded confused at first, like she thought I'd circle back after a walk. Then her voice sharpened when I said I was home. She said, "You actually left." I didn't argue with her. I said, "You said what you said in front of strangers. I'm done being the project." She went quiet, then whispered, "Don't do something dramatic, mini hook, because people who humiliate you will call your boundary dramatic." The next morning, I found the retreat invoice in our shared folder because we kept documents in a plain drawer by the kitchen clock. It wasn't hidden well. It was printed on thick paper with a clean logo and a line item that made my jaw tighten. Premium circle slot and pre-session coaching, add-on fee. That was my money proof. The total wasn't huge, but it was specific. She paid extra for the moment she hurt me, like she bought a spotlight. I called the lodge billing line and asked for a copy emailed to me because my name was on the reservation. They sent it without fuss. Under payment method, it showed our joint card, the same card I used for groceries and gas. Mini hook because it wasn't only humiliation, it was investment. I texted Tamsin one line, "You paid for that." She replied fast, "It was for us." Then she added, "You need to stop acting like a victim." Her words made my skin crawl because they sounded rehearsed. Edrin told me to change access that day and keep it legal, so I did simple things. I changed the code on our garage keypad and the password on the shared streaming account. I moved my personal documents, my lock and dam ID, and my work laptop into a locked drawer. None of it was revenge, it was basic safety. Tamsin came home late that afternoon. She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed, like my leaving had ruined her plan. She asked why the garage code didn't work, and I said, "Because you don't get to walk back into my life like nothing happened." She sat down and tried a softer voice. She said she was being honest and that it was therapy. Then she said the other couples probably agreed with her anyway, and that I embarrassed her by leaving. Mini hook, because the person who swings the hammer will complain about the noise. 2 days later, I went to our small local gym early to clear my head. When I got back, an envelope from the retreat sat on our porch mat, wet at the edges from fog. Inside was a printed facility access report and a note about a lost keycard dispute. Tamsin must have asked for it, and it landed in my hands by mistake. That was my location proof. The report listed keycard entries to the facilitator office cabin, and her card number was on it. The time stamps were the night before the honesty circle, just after dinner, when she told me she was taking a bath and going to bed. I stared at the times and felt that familiar work feeling, the moment you see a gate moved when it shouldn't have. I don't guess at the river. I don't guess here either. The access report said she met with Bastian privately to prepare. I called the lodge front desk and asked what the report meant. The manager said there was a complaint about an unpaid replacement fee and they generated logs. She said, "Sir, those are just entries, not content." I thanked her and hung up. That night I asked Tamsin directly why her keycard entered the facilitator office cabin before the circle. That was confrontation too. She stared at me, then shrugged and said, "So what if I did? I was trying to make this work." I pushed once. "Why didn't you tell me?" She flipped hard. She said I was insecure and I couldn't handle truth. Then she said, "If you had more ambition, I wouldn't have to do things like this." Her voice got louder as she spoke, like volume could turn cruelty into leadership. I didn't match it. I just said, "You didn't come to therapy, you came to stage a takedown." The next day, the communication proof arrived in the ugliest way possible. Tamsin didn't realize our car infotainment system stored recent voicemails when her phone connected. I got into the car to drive to work, and a short voicemail preview played through the speakers because it was the last audio on the device. It was Tamsin's voice, excited, talking to someone she saved as B. She said, "Tonight I'll say the potential line. It'll shake him. If he shuts down, that proves he's weak." Then she laughed and said, "Don't worry, the therapist is on board." My hands froze on the steering wheel. The words echoed in the car like a bad song. Mini hook, because nothing feels worse than hearing yourself described as an experiment. I didn't replay it again. I took a photo of the screen showing the voicemail snippet title and timestamp because Edrin told me to document, not spiral. Then I drove to the lock and dam with my jaw clenched tight. At work, the river was high from rain upstream. A barge captain called in frustrated and my crew looked to me for calm. I ran the next gate cycle slow and steady because rushing a gate is how you crack steel. In my head I kept thinking she paid for my humiliation, practiced it, and called me weak for reacting like a human. That week I stayed in a temporary place, not a hotel. My coworker let me use his hunting cabin on the edge of a state conservation area near New Haven. It smelled like pine resin and old propane, and the heater clicked all night. I slept better there than I did in my own bed, which says a lot. Edrin filed the initial separation paperwork quickly. She didn't give speeches. She gave steps. She said, "We will focus on what happened when it happened and what it shows about the marriage." The big twist came when Edrin asked me to request my copy of the retreat intake form. I thought it would be generic, but when the lodge portal sent it back, it included Tamsin's handwritten goals for the weekend, scanned and signed. The line that hit me hardest wasn't about love, it was about control. She wrote, "He needs public pressure or he won't change. He must feel the gap between what he is and what he could be." She signed it with the date. I sat at the cabin table and read it twice, then 3 times. She didn't blurt something in a moment. She planned it, paid for it, and documented it like a work plan. Tamsin's panic grew when she realized I wasn't coming back. She called, then texted, then showed up at the cabin once, standing outside in the cold like she was owed entry. When I didn't open the door, she shouted that I was ruining her reputation. Mini hook, because some people only value love when it looks good to others. A week later, Bastian Roque sent a short note through the retreat portal. He didn't take sides in feelings. He wrote a factual response to her complaint that I abandoned the process. He said the retreat could not force participation and confirmed that her premium slot and coaching were purchased by her request. That note became a quiet judgment from the very person she claimed supported her plan. And when she asked him to remove her intake form from the record, he refused in writing. He didn't insult her. He simply protected his business and his integrity. Tamsin's own job started wobbling because she tried to spin the retreat as continuing education to avoid using vacation days. Her clinic had strict rules about licensing credits and reimbursements. She submitted the retreat invoice as professional training, and the clinic administrator flagged the language and asked questions. When they asked for a course syllabus, she got angry and blamed me for making her stressed. She sent an email from her work account to the retreat asking for a revised invoice that said Clinical Leadership Seminar. Bastian refused again and forwarded the request to the clinic admin because his retreat did not want to be part of fraud. That was the consequence path she created, not me. The final confrontation happened in a mediation room at the Franklin County Courthouse Annex in Union, Missouri. The room smelled like copier paper and stale air, and a wall clock ticked too loud. Tamsin sat straight-backed with dry eyes, like she was ready for a debate. She started with deny. She said she never meant to humiliate me and that everyone misunderstood her tone. She said the potential line was a compliment and I was too sensitive. Then she minimized. She said it was one sentence in a therapy circle and I should not end a marriage over one awkward moment. She said my leaving proved I can't handle pressure. She looked at Edrin like she expected agreement. Edrin slid the invoice, the access report, and the intake form across the table. The room went quiet. Tamsin's face tightened and she shifted in her chair. Then partial admit arrived. She said, "Fine, I prepared. I thought it would push him." She admitted she paid for the slot because she wanted to make sure the truth was said. She tried to say it like strategy, not cruelty. Then the emotional move hit hard and sudden. Her voice cracked and she started crying, saying I was destroying her life and she could lose her license over paperwork mistakes. She begged me to stop and said she only did it because she was scared I would stay small forever. She reached across the table like tears could erase signatures. I didn't raise my voice. I said, "You didn't marry me. You hired me as a project." I said, "I'm not doing another gate cycle for someone who wants me to drown." After mediation, Tamsin tried one more trick. She posted vague lines online about men who quit when challenged. But the small town has long memory, and one of the couples from the retreat recognized her and spoke up at a local charity event. They didn't shout. They simply said, "We were there. We heard what you said." That quiet social shame hit her harder than any argument. Months passed. My divorce wasn't fully final yet, which is why this story still has a shadow at the edge, but my life got steadier anyway. I moved into a small rental outside Washington with a porch light that actually worked and a kitchen that stayed clean because no one used it as a battleground. I took a promotion at the Lock and Dam to operations supervisor for the district, which meant fewer emergency calls and more training work. I taught new staff one rule: never rush a gate cycle, because rushing breaks things you can't see yet. I met someone new through a volunteer river cleanup in Augusta. Her name is Nomi Quill, and she runs programs at a county public library, the kind of job that rewards patience and quiet care. She didn't ask what my potential was. She asked what kind of day I had. On a cold evening, Nomi and I ate at a small family diner inside an old train depot in Washington, Missouri. The windows fogged up and the place smelled like soup and fresh bread. I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, like my chest wasn't bracing for impact. I don't know how Tamsin tells the story now. Maybe she still calls it honesty. But I learned a clean truth of my own. If a person needs a crowd to respect you, they don't respect you at all. Thank you so much for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel.